Welcome everybody to Talkin Pop, where on this week's episode, we will be reviewing the latest in the James Bond franchise, Daniel Craig's final outing as 007, No Time to Die. We all saw the movie over the weekend, and I think the consensus was we all liked it. We're going to do a deep dive into it and talk about what we like, what we didn't like, our thoughts on the Daniel Craig saga as a whole, and our pick for the next James Bond, which is going to be like a really interesting search to watch over the next like year or so. So before I throw to you guys, I just want to give you my take on the movie really quick. My thoughts on the movie line up exactly the same as my thoughts on the Daniel Craig Bond saga. Not without its issues, but Daniel Craig is absolutely spectacular and the greatest actor to ever play this character. Yeah. Kelly, I'm going to throw to you first, and then we'll throw to 007 himself.
No, I totally agree. Daniel Craig is James Bond. He is the perfect actor to be in this generation of James Bond, like that mix of physicality and suave and all of that. So yeah, I will get into kind of the beats of this movie. It kind of lands, in the middle of my favorite Daniel Craig Bond movies. So we'll talk through why that is, but overall I walked out enjoying the movie. This is a spoiler review, so I'll just put that out there right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, why are you watching this?
Yeah, so
can I just say something? I want to say something right now, quick. Sorry to interrupt you, Kelly, but all these podcasts that do the same sort of style and discussion that we do, it always blows my mind when everyone's like, it's spoiler time now. It's like, no, if you haven't seen the movie, why'd you click on the video?
Yeah, we're going to say something.
Yeah, like, my God.
So I say that so that I can say they got me in the end, a tear shed from my eye. So yeah, like the ending got me for sure. So overall thumbs up, but I definitely have some issues that we'll dive into. Over to you, James.
Miller.
Listen.
Brad Miller.
Listen, Miller. Brad Miller. I don't know. I loved it. I was in it the entire time. When was this movie? This was I was gonna look it up, and then I was like, you know what? Let's just see who on the Talkin Pop team here knows this. When was the original air date or release date? Sorry, for this movie. Was it 2019?
2020.
It was
April 2020. April
2020.
Look at
Kelly killing it. So we've been promised this movie for like, let's say a year and a half now. And I am one of those people who has been waiting very impatiently for it. And they kept pushing it and they kept pushing it. And usually when that happens in Hollywood, it's like but this was obviously very different circumstances. And I was so excited for this movie. This was one of the top ones on my list to see this year because of the just prolonged absence of having this movie and how long it's been in the can. I loved it from start to finish. I think it wrapped it up in such a great way. Same thing for me, Kelly. I was definitely the guy in the theater going like trying to like stifle that lump in your throat, because I remember seeing Casino Royale in the theater and just being like, oh my God, like this is our Bond. This is our generation's Bond. Everybody else has their Bond that they talk about. This is our Bond. And he's a fucking badass. And I have loved him in that role ever since. And to see him go out in a kind of like a literal blaze of glory was just the pinnacle for me. I thought it was fantastic. That was a fantastic film.
So I'll go first. Let's do like a little bit of like a deep dive here. So I want to start with the things about it that I really liked. Like I'm going to skip past Daniel Craig because we're going to talk about Daniel Craig just incessantly on this podcast. And we all agree that he is he's the greatest ever to play this role. Things about it that I liked were the moments and the situations that he was put in. I thought this was his most like, I know they started in Skyfall to go back to the classic Bond tropes, the theme song, the the car, the one-liners, but this one he felt the most like original kind of OG Bond to me. The guy looks amazing. Every shot he's in, every suit he's wearing is just incredible. Yeah. I love the world they've built around him. The cast around him is just incredible. Like I love Q. I love M. I love Moneypenny. I love
perfect casting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God. And the new cast members too, like Anna de Armas character. Like she's only in the movie for what, 10 minutes? Yeah. 10 minutes. She's outstanding. Yeah, she's outstanding.
And don't forget about Felix.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Felix later. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Felix later.
Yeah.
Great actor.
I thought I'll be honest, going into this movie, I was kind of hesitant about the whole like Lashana Lynch new 007 vibe, just because traditionally in movies, I don't like that. Like, I don't want to watch you two. Like, we all know what's gonna happen. You're going to spend the first part of the movie sort of competing against one another and not liking each other. And then you're going to come together at the end for the greater good. But I actually thought they did really well. And I thought it was written very well. And she was kind of like a good sort of complimentary piece to him. And I thought the pair of them, like they had this sort of natural chemistry that I really liked. So I'm going to get into now to some of the things that I didn't love. Speaking of chemistry, I don't think Daniel Craig and Lea Seydoux have any of it. I felt this when I was watching Spectre. I don't buy their love story. It's not something like it doesn't feel authentic to me. It just kind of happened in Spectre and then they carried it on into this one. And it was such a key component of this movie that it just didn't hit for me. It's like, if this is going to be his last outing as Bond, like I want to see more things like every badass action sequence he's in. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to hit in the positives. I'm rambling away here, but the scene where they're in like the forest, like the Range Rover chase scene. Oh my God. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So to me, that like there's other things that I could nitpick. Like it is a bit too long. Rami's character, Safin, is a bit underwritten. But that's not really the point of the movie. The point of the movie is a send-off for Daniel Craig as Bond, which is why the chemistry with Madeleine Swan just doesn't really work for me. It just doesn't work for me. Also, my major ultimate gripe about this movie.
Let's hear it, Rob.
If you've seen the end of Casino Royale, there's no possible way that man could conceive a child. Absolutely no possible way. Look up any medical.
Rob, it's different strokes for different folks, you know?
There's just no way with the injuries that he sustained at the end of Casino Royale that he could conceive a child.
He's James Bond, dude.
Yeah, it's true.
He's James Bond.
It's true. But all in all,
no amount of smacks to the testicles will stop that man.
All in all, that was I just said I don't want to ramble, and then I rambled. All in all, thumbs up for me. Daniel Craig is the best. Perfect send-off for him. Thumbs up. Kelly, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record here because I've got a lot of the same sort of takeaways as you. I love the team around James Bond. Like that's why. So when I saw Skyfall, like I walked out of that movie being like, yes, because I just loved that they assembled like the Batman team around him. Like, you had Q as Alfred, like that, that kind of thing. Like I just loved that. So, all those characters returning and kind of playing those roles always, it always brings me into that world. I loved that first like car chase scene. And in particular, like I remember just sitting there, like when he's, pissed off at Madeline and he's kind of letting the guy shoot the side of the car and she's like, do something. And then he's like, okay. And he just get the two machine guns come out the front. Yes. I was just like, oh my God. Like, I was like, this is James Bond. Like, I just love that stuff.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was like, yes, like this is why we come to the movies. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Rob, Madeline Swan. I don't know. I don't see the like the connection there, and that's so vital to us buying into the end of the movie of like him sacrificing himself, and obviously it becomes more believable when you have a child in the mix. So yeah, like that, like I wanted to buy it, but then when you compare it to some other like powerhouse women who have been in these 5 movies, like you go back to Eva Green as Vesper,
Green,
and I know that they had to kill that character so that it, you know, you could have the emotional crux of him really coming into that character. But I just felt like a character like her and a personality like her was much more balanced to him, where she was also equally as quick-witted and sophisticated, but also had that like sort of quiet sensitivity. Like I liked that a lot more, and I bought into their love story a lot more. So yeah, I kind of, as you went through, like they're putting Madeline in danger and you're like, I don't really care, like whatever.
Whoa.
I mean, save the kid. But yeah, I don't know. And then yeah, I'm with you. Like Rami Malek, who's a great actor, I think he did a good job with what he was given. I just don't think he was given a lot. And then, you know, at the end, right? And so like at the end, you could, you know, see the ending coming from a mile away, which I also think kind of took me out of it, as I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to get to this. And I don't know about you guys. A bizarre thing that happened in my theater was right before the movie started, there was a title card that said, #no time for spoilers. Please do not spoil this movie. And so my fiance turned to me and said, so he's going to die. And so that kind of, I have to say, like, I was like, why did they do that before the movie and not at the end? Because at the, like, I'm just sitting there the whole time, I'm going, okay, let's check it off here.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, I'm going, let's check it off. He's got a kid, you know.
There was a group of individuals who took to Twitter on Thursday and was like, he's dying. So
I totally get why they did it. It was just bizarre that they did it before the movie even started, as opposed to right at the end. So yeah, that kind of took me out of it a little bit. Like kind of nitpicking things, like when Safin like has the kid and then he's just like, fine, you don't want my protection, run on. Like there were just a little things like that. That's a nitpick, but when he just lets the kid go, I don't know. Like, so the ending kind of muddled along a little for me, but yeah, Anna de Armas, I was like, can we swap her out? Like, maybe he falls in love with her. We get rid of him.
I honestly thought that's what was going to happen at a certain point. I was like, something's going to happen to her and then he's going to circle back.
Because her casting's a big deal for like such a small part in the movie. Yeah. All right.
She killed it.
Bond. Brad Bond.
Listen, while I do agree with some of those things, I don't agree with all of them. Just because one of the main things for me is, and I said this right after I watched it, Rami Malek needed more screen time. He needed more screen time.
Small.
Yeah.
It was oddly small. Like and to your point, he crushed it. I thought he was like, again, it was like when Christoph Waltz got cast initially, and we were like, well, duh, like this guy is a Bond villain. I felt the same way when Rami Malek was announced as the villain. I was like, oh my God, let's go. Like, yep, this is going to be great. And I kept waiting, and it was like, okay, because obviously you got him right off the hop. And it was like, oh my God, here we go. And you got all this backstory, and I feel like we got I don't even know. I'd be curious to know what the actual screen time was, but it wasn't long enough. And if anything, it's like, that would be great if they were going to carry him over into another movie, but he's dead. And this was Daniel Craig's last movie. So it's like, okay, I really, really wanted to see more about his character. I mean, I guess there's always a chance they do a spin-off or some weird thing that seems to be what they do with everything now.
He got shot in the face.
No, it could be a prequel. It could be a prequel. The whole thing.
True. All right.
But despite that, I thought he did an excellent job. I think, obviously, like we said, Daniel Craig, greatest James Bond ever. I'm sorry. But I don't have the same kind of feelings you guys do about the romance. I actually think it lent itself to the fact that he had this kind of ongoing looming feeling about Eva Green, which they talk, or Vespa, sorry, that they talk about at length in, you know, at the beginning, where she's like, you have to go to his grave or her grave. You have to, you know, get over this and everything else. So to me, I always kind of felt like, I don't think we're supposed to necessarily feel the same way about this romance that we did about the other one, because the other one was just so obvious and profound. And this one is supposed to be as well, but it's different, right?
Right.
I just feel like it's a little bit, I think it adds more overall pathos to the initial relationship that like really crushed him as a person, and made him the hard badass that he is as James Bond, to now have this other relationship that they're constantly this like trepidatious, untrusting relationship that kind of goes back and forth. Because I also think, just as her performance as well, I think she does an excellent job. Like the true emotion from her, true emotion from Daniel Craig, true emotion from Rami Malek through the whole thing, all the characters. I was really invested in. Even some of the action sequences felt like they were kind of hearkening back to Casino Royale, but a little leveled up. So like the car flips, there seemed to be like 50 car flips. And I think they still hold the record from the first one when they flipped the car for like 50 flips or some crazy number. But even the little shootout that goes down at the island in this film, in the stairwell when he initially gets there, really reminded me of Casino Royale in that first
that's
real
a physical fight scene, man.
Woo! And the camera work, it's like you're right in it. You are right in it. Like, I don't know who was doing the cinematography on this one, but it was like, hot damn, like this is good. This is like, I felt like I was in it. It also reminded me almost of like, say, the hallway fight scene from Daredevil, where you're like really in it. It was kind of one continuous shot, and I was like, oh, like I felt like we got those things, and it hit those beats for me as a James Bond movie. And I know I'm just gushing over this movie. I personally don't have a real gripe about this movie. I was just in it the whole time. I was like, this is what I wanted. This is the Bond movie that I wanted. And he went out on a high.
I wouldn't call it, it's weird. I wouldn't call it a gripe necessarily, because I thought that the portrayal of Bond and Craig's performance was perfect.
Oh yeah.
Kelly, do you think that part of the reason why the Madeline Swan thing doesn't hit for us is because the first part of their love story happened in Spectre, which overall was a bit of a whiff? Like, do we think that that's partially why like it sort of carried over from there? And like, because right off the hop, I was like, like you again. Like, I just because I honestly I love, and I know it's not a popular take in 2021, but like I do love my classic Bond where the movie starts and he's just on to the next mission and whatever new people he meets, and like that's kind of,
I don't mind the continuation. I actually think in theory that should have us be more bought into this romance, right? Correct. I think for me, it is a chemistry thing. Like I just don't, he's cool, like, you know what I mean? He's cool and quick-witted and like whatever. And she's just, I don't know. I just find her, no disrespect to Leah Seydoux, the actress. I just find her extremely boring. I really do. So that's my only thing. Like I think she's doing what she's supposed to be doing, but I don't think they're giving her a lot. She's just sort of quietly nodding and crying.
When I was watching their end scene together and they're talking to each other, you know, and he's like, and they're having the emotional scene. I was emotional just like watching him. He was talking to me in those moments. Like when he said, I love you, I was like, I love you too, man. I love you too, Daniel. Gonna miss you, Daniel. Oh my God, I love you so much. You're the best Bond ever.
Yeah. I'm a weirdo. I'm a weirdo because I'm a girl and I bring a blanket to the theater. So
do you?
Because I get cold.
No, you brought a blanket to the theater? That's awesome.
I bring a blankie. And so, yeah, I was just like, I just like pat it up over my face, like just patting the tears from my eyes.
That blanket needed to run through the wash cycle just to get the tears out. Oh man!
So I was wringing it out afterwards.
Yeah. That's it.
So overall, 3 thumbs up on No Time to Die.
Yeah, go check it out, folks.
Yeah, go check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a great conclusion to the Daniel Craig saga, which I want to talk about right now. So 5 movies in total. If you were going to draw it out, and I apologize to the audience that's listening to the audio here, but if you're going to draw it out, I would do something like this. You start on a high with Casino Royale, and then you're like, boom, Quantum. Yeah. And then way back up high again with Skyfall. And then kind of down again with Spectre. And then back up again to this one and No Time to Die. Let's talk about Daniel Craig first, and then I want to talk about elements of the saga, because there's definitely some things that I thought were kind of I'm big on the term whiff today, but there are definitely a few whiffs in these 5 movies that I look back and feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity. But Daniel Craig was not one of them. If you haven't watched the documentary here in Canada, it's on Crave TV. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's on like I don't know what it's on.
Probably Hulu. I would imagine, or something like that.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, there's a great there's a great documentary about Daniel Craig that was released in tandem with No Time to Die that I actually watched today, and it's called Becoming Bond, and it sort of takes you through his journey of when he was first cast and the uproar that went on.
I remember
how
it well.
Upset people were, just the fact that he was blonde, the fact that he wasn't perceived as a leading man, the fact that he's short, and it's like British press are pretty intense, savage with this sort of thing. And and towards the end, in Pierce Brosnan's last film, we're driving around an invisible car.
Pierce.
Yeah, like and then he's water skiing on the
on the fakest looking wave of all time.
Kelly, he's not water skiing. He's like parasurfing.
Yes.
Like he's surfing with a parachute.
When it's like the little hairs are like barely moving, and it's like, oh no.
So it's like. So the franchise needed to be rebooted, and I think all of us are in agreement that if you're going to look at the 5 Craig Bond movies, Casino Royale is the best one. It has the best story, great villain. They did away. That was one where there's like no Bond tropes in that at all. Like aside from him saying Bond, James Bond at the end of the movie, there's no theme song. There's no nothing.
You learn about the backstory of the shaken, not stirred. That might be the only other one.
Right. And so I think what he brought to the role was physicality and just this kind of rugged like masculinity in that, like, he's obviously still a very good looking man, looks great in a suit, can deliver all the one-liners, but like you believe that when that dude starts throwing hands that he's like formidable, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think I think that is what hits for everyone with him. And you quickly, for those people who are upset about him being blonde hair, blue eyed, all you need to do is watch that opening scene from Casino Royale where he's fighting the guy in the washroom stall. And right away you're like, we're good. This is going to be fine. This is
2 minutes in. Yeah.
So Brad, I'm going to throw to you first and just give me your thoughts overall on Daniel Craig, his tenure specifically as 007.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious based on my ravings from earlier in this episode, but he's the greatest Bond of all time. All due respect to all the previous Bonds, we, especially in my household, like most people's dads, are huge Bond fans. So you grow up a Bond fan, and growing up with like the Sean Connerys and the Pierce Brosnans, and like those were kind of my 2 guys that I kind of latched onto, because one was the OG and one was like the one from like the early 90s when we were kids. But like I said earlier in the episode, when I saw Casino Royale for the first time after like the silliness of the last, Pierce Brosnan performance and everything else, no disrespect, I love Pierce Brosnan, but it was like a real holy shit moment. Like, this is a guy we haven't seen before. This is a Bond that I believe is what, exactly to your point, Rob, like somebody who I can actually really see in a hand-to-hand physical fight, and has all the other things to back it up, but the suave, the cool, the badass. And I remember very, very well when he got cast. And I wasn't one of the people ranting and raving because I just didn't really know who he was at the time. I was fairly young, wasn't quite aware of his previous work. But I was like, what the hell is everybody freaking out about? Like, give the guy a shot. Because I remember when things like this happen, when the character means so much to so many people. Like when Heath Ledger got cast as Joker, everybody lost their flipping mind, like thought it was going to be the end of all things Batman or whatever. But this, I just remember very much like the Heath Ledger performance. It was like 2 minutes in and you're like, and that guy just came out, performed his ass off, did all the physical work, hit all the emotional beats. He's I don't know who's going to fill those shoes next, but they got some big ass shoes to fill. And like I said, I just think between all the different films, Casino Royale still being my favorite as well. Quantum of Solace was really the only one where I really was kind of like, ugh. The rest, I really didn't have that same kind of visceral reaction to even like Spectre. I loved that it was like dark and gritty and it still had all those kind of things that we had come to expect from like the Daniel Craig era movies, and especially having a through line story that we never really got before, to me was revolutionary.
Yeah.
No, you're just supposed to think that Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery were the same guy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. One wore a wig because he was already bald, and the other guy actually had a full head of hair. But regardless of that, it was something that I felt the series of Bond as a whole needed so bad, because everyone knew that it had gone down this path of like, okay, it's silly. This is a different generation now. What are we going to do different while still staying somewhat in the vein of Bond, so this doesn't just feel like any action flick? And I feel like we have gotten this progression through all the different movies, for better or worse, some of the ones that people didn't like, some of the ones they do, whatever. I just think that this is something that's going to be very hard to top. And I'm excited to see who gets brought out of the gates next, because it seems like forever ago when Daniel Craig was rolled out as the new Bond. So I'm excited for when that time comes. But as of right now, I'm just like, let's just let it breathe. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing in film, and I can't say enough about it. Got the big lump in my throat, Kelly. I wish I had a blanket as well, because I was doing the full, like, I'm fine. Come on, man. Keep it together.
Kelly,
but go ahead. Yeah.
Kelly, your thoughts on Daniel Craig's tenure as James Bond?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have kind of said it all. I don't have too much to add. I would rank the movies in a similar way. Casino Royale being my favorite, Skyfall coming in second, then the other ones kind of jumbled together. It's interesting just to kind of look at the way that movies changed in that 2005, 2006 era, because that's like when Batman Begins came out as well. And so these are movies that like the predecessor was just so silly. And it was like in 2005, 2004, they just kind of were like, we got to smarten up here, guys.
Yeah.
We got to start taking this seriously.
We're wrecking this.
And that's what they did. And so, like it was a much needed reinvigoration for the character. They brought in the right guy, despite the controversy. They did the right thing. And then the only other thing I'll say about it is, a few years ago, I had the opportunity, they do it here in Toronto. You can go to Roy Thompson Hall and you pay to watch a movie and have a live orchestra play the score. And I saw Casino Royale in that environment. And my God, did it make me love that movie so much more, because not only do you have the live music around you, but then you've also got the audience cheering every time he, does one of his badass James Bondisms. So that's just a highlight of like me going to the movies in general. So I have such a fondness for that movie and this character just because of that experience as well. So yeah.
So I want to talk about, by the way, when they did cast Daniel Craig, it was a head scratching moment for me, not because I was upset or anything, but because I was like, the guy from Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Oh my
the guy.
God, that was
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I could easily go onto his filmography to see what he did first, but I was at that time I was like, I don't really. He
That
looked
was-
familiar to me, but I was like, I don't really know who this
That
is.
was my only point of reference. I was like the guy from the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies
Yep.
that are currently available at my local grocery store for $1.99.
In the bin?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
In the bin. So I think the Craig saga was not without its flaws, and I wanted to point some of those out because I think there's lessons that can be taken as we go forward with this new Bond. One of the things that the thing with this one is it was a clean, as you guys have both touched on, it was a clean sort of break, and it was like a reboot, and it was like, we're going to start from scratch here. We're going to forget all the stuff that's happened. It was a through storyline through 5 movies. To me, I think part of the issue was the highs in this are so high that it's almost hard to top, right? So it's like you have Casino Royale, which top to bottom is, in my opinion, and based on what I've heard you two say so far, is the best Bond movie ever made, in my personal opinion.
Great.
Easily.
And that's a movie where you have Mads Mikkelsen playing Le Chiffre, and he's excellent in that. Like, to me, I thought it was like highs and lows with villains, right? And this is because we already talked about Rami Malek. All right. And we think that the issue with Rami is that he just wasn't given enough to work with, which is true. Then you have Javier Bardem's Silva, which was excellent, like completely excellent. Like
I just watched that movie like before we hopped on here.
We'll go down as probably the greatest Bond villain of all time. Then you have, in my opinion, I gotta be honest with you guys, like I wanted to touch on this, and even though this is like a pretty like rosy like review of the Daniel Craig Bond saga, Ernst Stavro Blofeld is James Bond's arch nemesis from back to the original Ian Fleming books. He's the character that they based Dr. Evil on.
Yes.
So it's like he was in a bunch of the original Connery movies and whatever. So when they cast Christoph Waltz in that character, it was like, this is a home run. Like, you instantly think of like his character in Inglourious Bastards, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's perfect. Like, he's going to be awesome. And that movie, which I learned today in watching this Becoming Bond documentary, part of the issue with that movie is Daniel Craig broke his leg, and then they kept filming. So he's wearing like a giant like brace all the way up his leg during a lot of the scenes in that movie. So they had to change.
Had no idea.
I highly recommend. I highly recommend watching this. It's enlightening. For the two movies in the Craig saga that are kind of like meh, it's really enlightening. I'll talk about Quantum in a second. But to me, I just think that because overall Spectre wasn't, I think it was partially like it was following Skyfall and Javier Bardem's epic performance in that. So it's like you're trying to follow up with a character, like we keep referencing the Dark Knight trilogy here, right? And Chris Nolan, but it's like you had Heath Ledger's epic performance as the Joker. Then you come back for Dark Knight Rises and you have Tom Hardy as Bane, which is like totally different villains. So you're not necessarily automatically comparing him to the previous Heath Ledger's Joker. So I think whereas like a Bond villain is a Bond villain, it's like most Bond villains are not like overly physical. Like they're like kind of evil masterminds who sit with their henchmen in a big chair at the end of the table. And it was also like Skyfall, we kind of got away from, if Casino Royale and Quantum, they're alluding to Spectre a lot, right? There's this terrorist organization. Skyfall, we kind of get away from that, and it's Silva is like going after M, and he has a vendetta with Judi Dench's M and what she did to him. And then in Spectre, it's like, oh yeah, we started this storyline 2 movies ago. We need to kind of bring it back, and then they kind of like water down. Silva.
That's my biggest gripe. That's my biggest gripe is that. Skyfall, it was so good, and then they're like, he was working for us too, and I'm like, no.
Which takes away.
I get it, but
I just think it didn't. It was. I don't know if it was timing. I don't know if it was similarity. I don't know if it was, like I said, abandoning a storyline, and then coming back to it and sort of having to like force feed it all back in. But I just, to me, when I look back at these 5 movies, the thing that I look at and go, it just didn't hit as hard as it could have was Christoph Waltz, Blofeld, and it has nothing to do with him. He's amazing. I just think the character itself was not put on the pedestal that it should have been for whatever reason.
I will say too that the way in which Blofeld essentially dies in this movie too, I will say that did leave me a little bit flat.
Yeah.
That left me a little bit flat because it was almost just like an accident.
Well,
Essentially it was. Yeah.
I think that was their attempt to be like, Rami Malek's character Safin is way, more to be feared and stuff. But that, I guess, to go back with some of my issues with this movie is there was almost part of me that thought, if you've established that there's this, way for Blofeld to see into the world with that like mechanical eye, it's why not have him just continue to be the bad guy, and have like that feud continue. I didn't feel we needed to introduce like another entity. I actually would have liked to maybe have seen this, because if we built up Spectre over these last few movies, maybe have the swan song go out with the feud between Bond and Spectre, like that. That's
especially after you alluded to them being like stepbrothers in Spectre.
Exactly. Yes. Right. Yeah. So you've built up this dynamic that's really, and like you see how mad he gets in like, that borderline like interrogation scene, and he's like, just die. Whatever. And I'm like, they hate each other. Like, this is good, right? Whereas there's actually no connective thread between Safin and Bond other than that he's captured the boring wife or girlfriend. So I just
oh my God.
So that was another thing too, where I was like, I know why Rami Malek's an Oscar winner, so I get it. They were like, let's get him in here. Like but yeah, I think I'm with you, Rob. I think they did Blofeld a little dirty in this in this series of movies.
Brad, your thoughts before you go though? We should give a minor. We're talking villains here, so we should give a minor shout out to Dominic Green from Quantum.
Correct.
One of the most forgettable Bond villains of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to.
I forgot his name.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're asking me his name right now, there's gonna be a little bit of a.
But what does that tell? What does that tell you though? Like, it's just like that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, Quantum. There's been times where I've left though. Like I said, when I left Quantum, I was a little like, but I never left feeling like, what the was that? Like, that was horrible. Like, it was like, I never left like that. It was just always like there was just maybe like some things I kind of wish they had done a little bit differently or like whatever. There is something to be said though for like keeping you on your toes, and it might have been a little too easy to just kind of go like Blofeld breaks out of prison again, and it's like a whole thing. But I also would have been okay with it if it had happened. I would have been like, well, this is awesome too. So I guess when you really break it down, I mean, Le Chiffre was somebody right off the hop who was kind of like, dude cries blood. Like that's pretty spooky.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's such a Bond thing. That's such a Bond villain thing.
Yes. And it was just the way he was so, I mean, Mads is just such like a internalizes all his like creepiness or like things that he brings to the character and everything, and just like the little dabbing of it and explaining why it does that. It was just such like an interesting character, and it was very subtle in a lot of ways, which is not usually something you get out of a Bond villain. So I'm tempted to give him the edge, but I'll also say to what we've already alluded to here is Javier Bardem's character was one of the best, chewing the scenery, but not like over the top. Somehow, like, I don't even know how he did. Like, I don't know how you can chew the scenery and also not feel like this is over the top. Like when he pulls the teeth out of his mouth, when he chewed the capsule.
Your work, mother.
Yes. And his voice goes even
Mother
deeper.
has been very bad.
Yes. These performances are so good as well, guys. Very nice. Well done.
Are you casting me in the next one?
You're in.
Can I ask one question to you guys? Because Rob, I know you're going to talk a little bit about the future of James Bond. I want to ask one question because I was reading through some reviews that for people who've been watching James Bond since they were since like the 70s, 80s, people are upset that they killed him. Do you think that was the right thing to do? Or do you think there was any other way that they could have ended this saga? Obviously, there's the option of just let him keep going and we switch him out and whatever. Or does he ride off into the sunset with his daughter? Or do you have to kill him?
No, because the character of James Bond, I thought it was perfect. Like, let's bookend this Craig saga, as I've dubbed it. Let's bookend that and start fresh. The character of James Bond is not meant to spend his years being daddy. Like, he's not.
Papa,
he's not meant to spend his years changing diapers. Although she's a little old.
Yeah, she's 5.
Yeah, but like the character is like, he's a badass secret agent who wouldn't ever be able to stop. So it's not, it wouldn't sit, honestly, I wouldn't like it if it ended and it was just like, here he is with his wife and daughter going off into retirement. Like, no.
Well, also too, just the fact that they had kind of the first movie, I think it is the opening scene, the black and white scene in the bathroom where he says something, I'm going to mess this up a little bit, but essentially alludes to the fact that double O's have a short life expectancy.
Yeah.
Right. And then at the end of a lot of these movies, it was like he would try to have that, life, and he just kept getting sucked back in. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Like, it's like that.
I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
It's like Batman. He can't give it up. Like, he can't, you know what I mean? Like, there's no life beyond this. This is what it's like. I'm in total agreement that as much as, like I said, I was wringing out my blankie because I was very upset. They had to do it. They had to.
Yeah.
I do think well, I understand the point of that and why they did that, and it makes sense for this version of the character. I do think it did get a bit much in these 5 movies of like every time he's like, I'm out. Well, I'm leaving MI6. And they're like, fine, leave. And then he's like,
I'd like to request to have him reinstated as 007.
He's like, I'm back. And they're like, no, you're not.
And
then
back,
they're like,
resurrection. I'm back
actually,
from the dead.
you are. You're back now.
I've still got Q on speed dial every time something happens.
It did get a bit much. So I want to move on and talk about the next Bond, but before I do that, I want to just hit one little trivia fact on Quantum, because someone who's going to watch this who loves that movie is going to be like, you didn't mention the real problems with Quantum. Did you know Quantum came out during the writer's strike and they started shooting that movie without a script?
I do remember that.
This is ringing a bell.
So again, this is why
strike.
I texted both you guys earlier and I said, watching this has made me lighten up on Quantum a little bit, because Daniel Craig and Barbara Broccoli like fully admit that production was a disaster. Like we literally started shooting without a script and we were writing as we go. So we'll give we can cut that movie a bit of slack now.
All right.
Imagine having like 100 million or whatever the cost of that movie was. I think that movie actually still has the biggest explosion in film history, the one that happens at the end. But that's got to be like at least $100 million production. Can you imagine?
230 million.
200. Imagine. Okay.
Just winging it.
Just pause for a second. Imagine just knowing you have $230 million and you're just like, well, we're going to have some crazy ass explosions and car flips and everything else. We don't know what anybody's saying though, or how this is going to play out, but let's just roll with it. Yeah. But I also remember when that writer's strike happened. That writer's strike took down a lot of good franchises, TV shows, a lot of different stuff. And Hollywood learned their lesson that they were like, well, we'll just go hire somebody else. And it's like, no, you're not.
Barbara Broccoli literally says that the person who wrote the script, turned it in, picked up their check, turned around, grabbed their picket sign and went out front like, yeah.
Wow.
So
all right,
we'll give Quantum
for the Quantum fans.
So we're gonna wrap it up with this discussion. the three of us could sit here and we could bring up every actor under the sun and we could sit here for hours and hours talking about it. But I don't want to do that because we only have a finite amount of time here. So what I want to do is I want you to give me your actor choice and the style in which you'd like to see it rebooted. So I'll go first just to give you guys a thought of what I have in mind here. I want to start from the beginning. Like Daniel Craig, yes, we did technically start from the beginning, but he was a bit older when he got the role. Like I want to go back. I don't want to start like this is a guy coming out of the academy. Like he's going to make mistakes. Kind of like, you guys aren't going to be surprised I'm about to say this, but like kind of like what they're saying Pattinson is going to be. Like he's making mistakes along the way. He's learning as he goes, like kind of that sort of thing. So for the listeners, we have not disclosed to each other who our choices are. So we may double up here, but I don't think we're going to. My choice is Richard Madden to take over the role. I think you could start.
Damn it.
I think you could start. Okay, so Brad,
I wasn't trying to not look at the screen right there. His name slipped out of my head for 2 seconds, and I was like, "Oh shit, I need to figure out his name again."
So
Richard
here, Brad,
Madden.
Brad,
that was my guy.
I'll give you a 2-pack then. I'll give you a 2-pack.
I don't know if the folks can see this here, but it says Richard Madden.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so fine. Yeah. Here, let's give you a 2-pack then, just to make it interesting.
Okay, I'll think of someone else.
No, like I said, I want to go younger. I don't want to do Henry Cavill. I don't want to do Tom Hardy. I don't want to do Hugh Jackman. I don't want to do Idris Elba. All too old. All of them. All great actors. Could all be great James Bonds. Too old. And I know he's done Kingsman, but could we not give Taron a look as like Taron Egerton as like a young, like early 30s 007? Like I was looking at, I Googled young British actors today. And his was one of the first names that I saw, and he's only like in his early 30s. And so I was kind of like if you want to go the route that I want to go with the character, he's somebody who I think you could cast and he could sort of grow with the role. Like he could do 5 movies and grow with the role, no problem.
Yeah, he's actually been. I'm rolling through the Rolodex of his other previous performances and things as well, or just from seeing him in interviews and what have you. And he does have a lot of charm. Like he's a very charming young British actor. He's got like a grittiness to a lot of his performance, even like when you said like he was in Kingsman, there was a grittiness to that. Yeah, I could get behind it. I mean, like I said, I feel like when I was genuinely looking at who I thought it could be, I was just I literally was going like, meh. Like it's just because it's too like I feel like it hurts me right now because I'm like, ugh, I was so bought into what we got from Daniel Craig, and it's not that I'm expecting somebody else to come in and like try to do the exact same thing. I think that would be a disservice to them as an actor. But man, like I said, those are some big shoes to fill. And I think it honestly depends on the road that they try to take with these new movies. Because I think if you're just going to try and somewhat replicate what you just did with the Daniel Craig saga, I can't picture a ton of actors that are going to fit that bill off the top of my head. I would actually be very into the idea of kind of to your point, Rob, when you're like the guy from Tomb Raider, like it does not, the role sells it. You get me a young actor that can fill those dramatic shoes and the same shoes that are, you know, that physicality, that grittiness, that all those things, all those different beats. It's so important, or it just becomes another shoot 'em up, you know, explosions, whatever kind of movie. I think that's something that now that they've kind of shown us, like, well, these movies were always kind of like a little fluff and like, you know, whatever, even though we love them, this really showed that they were like true blue films that they kind of carried through. I think you need to stick in that vein and give us somebody that can fill those shoes. Don't just give us a movie star. I don't need a movie star. I need somebody who can fill those shoes.
Well, there you go, Kelly.
Yeah, no, I agree that I would be totally fine with a relatively unknown actor coming in and taking this over. I think where, like, if I was in charge and sitting at the table right now and having the discussion, Daniel Craig, what he brought to the role, like we talked about his physical, like he was a bit of a brawler, right? Like he like was able to get it and just really like, you know, like he could manage those fight scenes and the action scenes better than anyone that we've seen. Then we've sort of seen like, you know, like the, like, you know, debonair, like sophisticated man who walks in, orders a martini, shoots a guy, walks out. Like we've seen that. And so I'm like, I like
shoots like him, walks out.
So I'm kind of thinking like, how do we bring Bond into like, you know, I think if we're gonna like look at the types of stories that they're telling, they're maybe more like cyber hacking type, you know, technology driven stories. So maybe you bring in a guy that you can kind of have like a believability that, not that Daniel Craig doesn't look like a smart man, but like someone who like kind of has like an air of like, you know, like real like hyper intelligence and like still has the sophistication, but also you could kind of see him like working like gadgets and things like that. So maybe it's a little bit less of like the hand-to-hand combat type Bond. Because I think that would take it in a much different direction than what they just did with Daniel Craig. So I wrote Richard Madden because I think he would do a great job. Now, if I'm again sitting in my little, you know, lady CEO business suit, he's in another big franchise right now. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket because a lot of the times when these actors sign on to a big franchise, they might not do another one. So another one that I picked is Renee Jean Page, who was in Bridgerton, who is a very handsome man, young guy, has the look, has the style. You could definitely see him.
He'd be a great choice.
Yeah. So he was my, I had two options there. So he would be my other choice. I could definitely see him, you know, taking up the mantle and bringing a new element to the Bond stories.
So you know who can I just say something really quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
Because as you're talking, like, again, it's like I got myself all riled up, and then I'm like trying to like think about like who else could go in there. And actually, it was funny because I just brought him up, and I don't know the kind of rule set because I know it's like they're never gonna hire an American actor. They're never gonna do something like that as filling those shit. Like every Bond would roll over in their grave. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's Scottish. But actually, Charlie Cox, I mentioned Daredevil earlier it's kind of an interesting choice where, again, because I was thinking as soon as you said like, you know, along the lines of like you could kind of see him being maybe like a little bit more techie, but he does have some physicality. So, cause he's a little bit more of like a slender guy. I don't know, just popped in my head. It's an interesting.
So I want to use both of your points to hammer home my point, and then we'll get out of here. So Kelly, you highlighted that you think it would be a smart decision to go in more of like a new age sort of tech style role. Brad, you've made the very good point throughout the show about how these are massive shoes to fill. This is why you have to go young as you can in his formative years and start from scratch. That's a version of this character we've never seen. That will instantly do away with the comparisons. If you just start the next movie with Henry Cavill standing there going, Bond, James Bond, instantly you're comparing him to, or Tom Hardy, Idris Elba, like whoever, seriously, insert older actor here. And you're instantly comparing them. But if you start it and he's like, don't let him get the mantle of 007 right until the very end of the movie. The whole time he's shadowing another 00. Maybe he's shadowing his predecessor 007 and then inherits the mantle from him or her at the end of the movie. Something like that. But I just think like it's a mistake and you are asking for endless comparisons and people initially rejecting. If you just come right back with, this is Bond, he's already Bond, he's out here, he's doing things like just don't do it. Start again from scratch.
Yeah. I think because you're setting yourself for you're setting yourself up for just what didn't the last franchise do that you're going to do by casting somebody in the same age and like redo these characters again. And this seems to be something that Hollywood does like to do now, where it's just kind of like, before it was like, okay, we'll wait 20 years or 15 years or something. Now it's like, a year
2
went by,
minutes.
we want to
Yeah.
reboot this thing. Like we're just gonna refill all the character roles that have now, we've done this before. So I think that's an excellent point. We have discussed this before as a little off-screen group discussion where we've said like, yeah, like let's take a different take on this, just like the Daniel Craig saga did, without jumping so far from it. You can still do a younger version and have this be like really, really interesting and really something you haven't seen before, but still have the tropes and the all the things you expect from a Bond movie, but in something that we haven't really seen before. I totally agree.
Exactly.
Me too.
So I think that is going to cap off our 007 discussion for this week. Overall, thumbs up
Thanks,
on the new
Daniel.
movie, and we're all sad to see the Daniel Craig era end. So we're all gonna get off and go have a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred, in his honor. So we're gonna be back next week, and we're gonna review DC Fandom.
Bum, bum, bum.
I'm just going to say ahead of time, Kelly or Brad will be hosting this week's episode because I'm literally going to start the episode like this. Exhausted.
For us audio listeners, he just like
Overload.
was comatose in his seat.
I'll just be like, and the only thing I'm going to say through the whole episode are quotes from the new trailer for the Batman.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
I'm not prepared. I feel like I'm not
subscribe
prepared.
now, guys. You're in
Subscribe
for a
now
ride.
so you can hear me do all the on vengeance impressions for an hour.
Wow.
it'll be
So-
Rob's last episode because he will have blown out his larynx from
It's
trying
true.
to do that
Yeah.
throughout the entire hour-long episode.
We've only been doing this for a few weeks, but I gotta say, like, this episode coming up next week it's the one that I've been most excited for. I am so stoked out of my mind. Last year's DC Fandom was incredible, and I have no doubt that this year, with all the footage they're teasing being shown, is going to be even better. So you don't want to miss that. So what you need to do is hit that like and subscribe button below. Make sure you don't miss it. We're going to be talking about all the biggest news from DC Fandom, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
See ya.